You know, some stories aren't just told for entertainment. They're written to save a truth from being completely wiped out. Today, we're going to dive into one of those stories, about a man whose very name was forbidden, and how a novel became the only thing keeping his memory alive. It's an incredible tale, so let's get right into it.
So how does a story save a life that's already gone? It's a powerful question, and it's really at the heart of everything we're talking about today. We're about to see how a book can become this lifeline for history, preserving a hero that an entire system tried to erase from existence.
All right, so at the center of all this, you've got two names. On one end, there's Kulan. He's the hero of a really famous Kazakh novel. And on the other, you have Keiki Batyr. He's the real guy, the actual historical person Kulan is based on. And what's just so wild is figuring out how this fictional character basically became the guardian of a real person's legacy.
To really get this, we've got to start with the book itself, and maybe more importantly, the incredibly dangerous world it was born into.
Okay, so look at that year, 1968. You have to understand, this is the peak of the Soviet era. And at this time, Keiki Batyr's name was completely forbidden. You could not say it. The official state story was that he was nothing more than a bandit, a criminal. To even whisper that he might have been a hero, well, that was an unbelievably dangerous thing to do.
So the author, this guy Akhan Nurmanov, was in a tough spot, right? He couldn't use Keiki's real name. So he had to get creative, and what he did was just brilliant. He named his hero Kulan. Now Kulan wasn't just pulled out of a hat. It was the actual name of the clan that Keiki Batyr himself belonged to. It was like a secret code, a little nod to everyone who knew the true story. I mean, think about the guts that took back then. Just incredible.
Okay, so we've got the book. Now let's pull back that curtain of fiction and meet the man, the legend himself.
There's this old folk saying that just says it all. See, his contemporary, Amangaldi, was another huge hero, a famous marksman who, aimed very carefully. But Keiki, oh man, the stories about him were that he was so naturally gifted, so in tune with his weapon, that he didn't even need to aim. His hand just knew where to fire.
And that kind of skill gets you a special title, Mergen. Now, this isn't just a word for a good shot. No, it's a title of deep respect. It means you're a true master of the step, a sniper so legendary, your accuracy feels almost supernatural. So, behind all this legend, there's a real person. His name was Nurmagomed Kokimbayuli. People called him Keyki, which translates to something like the loner. He was a man of the vast Turgai steppe. And here's the most important part. He was a key leader in the 1960 national uprising against the Tsar, a true defender of his people. But the very world that created this hero, well, it was about to come crashing down, and it would pull him into an absolute tragedy.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It is insane. In the span of just a few short years, his entire world collapses. First, the uprising he's leading against the Tsar. Boom. Then, the Russian Revolution just blows up the old empire. Then, in 1919, his closest ally, Amangeldi Imanov, is murdered. And, as if that's not enough, a horrific famine just rips through the land. It was pure chaos, one brutal regime just replacing another.
So this puts Keiki at a massive crossroads. He had fought his whole life for his people's freedom, and now this new power comes in, bringing nothing but hunger and injustice. So what does he do? Does he join them and throw away everything he believed in, or does he stand by his principles? Well, he stayed true to himself, and for that, the new Soviet government immediately branded him an enemy of the people. And back then, that was pretty much a death sentence.
And that decision pushed him into the shadows. He became an outcast. Old friends started looking the other way, and the circle of betrayal started closing in fast. The Soviets sent a whole detachment after him. But here's the really tragic part. They had help. They were guided by traitors, people who had once fought alongside him. And in April of 1923, they found him. They cornered him, his wife, and his younger brother.
What happened next wasn't just a fight. It was a calculated act of humiliation. After he was killed, they decapitated him. But they didn't use a warrior's sword. They used a ketman, a heavy, rough farming hoe. Think about the message that sends, the symbolic cruelty of it. They were saying, this great warrior isn't even worthy of a real weapon. It was the ultimate act of desecration.
And they weren't done. That wasn't enough. They wanted to kill the idea of Keiki Batyr. So they took his severed head and put it on public display at the city gates. It was a gruesome, terrifying warning to anyone who even thought about resisting. This is what happens when you defy us.
After that horrible display, the skull was packed up and sent off to the Kunstkamera museum in Leningrad. And there, a national hero was stripped of his name, his story, everything, and he became just an object, a cold, soulless inventory number 3383.
And this was the official lie they wrote to go with it. The museum label didn't say freedom fighter or hero, it read, Skull of the famous Kyrgyz bandit Keyki, who raged in the steppe with his atrocities. Just like that, the protector of the people was officially rewritten as a monster. History, it seemed, was settled.
But history? Well, history has a funny way of remembering the truth. And almost a century later, a new journey was about to begin. The journey home.
So, in 2016, after years of diplomatic work, skull number 3383 was finally returned to Kazakhstan. A team of Hungarian anthropologists got to work, and what they did was amazing. First, they reconstructed his face, so for the first time people could actually see the face of the legend. But then, their forensic work confirmed the old stories people had been telling for generations. They found clear evidence of 7 severe blows from a blunt object, proving the brutality of his end. Science was finally giving a voice to the dead.
And then came the day, September 15th, 2017. History finally came full circle. The man they had labeled a bandit was laid to rest with full military honors in a mausoleum built just for him, right in his homeland. After nearly a century, Keiki Batyr finally came home as the hero he always was.
So when you step back and look at this whole incredible story, you realize that justice doesn't always take the form you expect.
You see, today, Keiki Batyr really has 2 monuments. There's the monument of stone, his mausoleum. That's what restored his honor and corrected the public record. But then there's the monument of words, that novel, The Death of Kulan. And that's what kept his memory alive through all those long, dark years when the truth was buried. The stone corrected the history, but the words saved the story.
And that brings us right back to where we started. When the official version of history is a deliberate lie designed to erase a hero, where does the real truth go? The story of Keiki Batyr gives us a pretty powerful answer, doesn't it? It survives in the stories we tell, in the memory of the people, and in the courageous pages of a book.